Yeah, what's the question though?
Do you think Donald Trump is genuinely considering military action?
Look, I don't actually. I think that this can be resolved and should be resolved through calm discussion.
Der Sicherheit geht in Europa zurzeit mehr vom Osten aus als vom Westen. Wir sehen den Krieg in der Ukraine. Das ist die ernsthafte Gefährdung unserer gesamten Sicherheit, insbesondere der Sicherheit ganz Osteuropas. Westeuropa, und dazu zählt Grönland, ist zurzeit durch Russland nicht in dem Umfang gefährdet, wie es an der einen oder anderen Stelle zum Ausdruck kommt. Und deswegen würde ich gerne auch in meinen Gesprächen der nächsten Tage den Fokus wieder etwas mehr auf die Ukraine legen. Denn wir haben nach wie vor keine Bereitschaft von Putin an den Verhandlungstisch zu kommen und diesen Krieg zu beenden. Und das ist in der Tat für die Sicherheit Europas zurzeit meine größte Sorge. Nicht Grönland, sondern die Ukraine.
This is my video update on this Monday afternoon, January the 19th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And we are going to start things off with Greenland. And if you thought things with Greenland were pretty crazy yesterday, well, things got a whole lot weirder today when it comes to Greenland, because we had a letter that was published by PBS, and they managed to get a hold of a letter from the U.S. president addressed to the Prime Minister of Norway, and the letter was also distributed to European ambassadors in the United States, and PBS managed to get a hold of this letter from various European officials. Of course, the letter, because it was distributed to European officials and ambassadors in the United States, obviously was meant to be leaked to the media. And so PBS, they were the first to publish this letter from Trump to the Prime Minister of Norway. And this letter links the Nobel Peace Prize to Greenland. Yep, this letter links the fact that Trump did not get the Nobel Peace Prize to Greenland. So let me read you the post from Nick Schifrin of PBS. On X, he said, new at POTUS letter to Jonas Gahr links Nobel Prize to Greenland, reiterates threats, and is forwarded by the NSC staff to multiple European ambassadors in Washington. I obtained the text from multiple officials. Dear Ambassador, President Trump has asked that the following message shared with Prime Minister Jonas Gahr be forwarded to your name, head of government, state. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus is in all caps, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. Yeah, Norway should have given Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. They should have just given it to him, officially given it to him. Instead, you had to go with the Venezuela regime change script, right? You had to go with Machado and regime change in Venezuela, Norway, Nobel Prize Committee. And what happened? Machado ends up giving the prize to Trump. Unofficially, she gives the prize to Trump. Not the money, but the prize. And who knows, if you had given that Nobel Peace Prize officially to President Trump, Europe may not have this Greenland problem. Now you have Trump saying, no Nobel Peace Prize? Well, then I'll just take Greenland. How about that? And he says 8+ wars. He has stopped 8+ wars. I thought it was 8 and a third, or 8 1/4, or 8 1/2, because of the whole Cambodia-Thailand war that started and stopped and started and stopped. But anyway, 8+ wars, plus in all caps. So that is the letter that was first published by PBS, meant to be leaked to the media, no doubt about it. And the Trump White House is linking the Nobel Peace Prize to Greenland. So Trump also posted on Truth Social, NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years that you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Unfortunately, Denmark has been unable to do anything about it. Now it is time, and it will be done. President Donald J. Trump. Yes, that's that Russian threat. No China? There's no China in this post on Truth Social. It's the Russian threat away from Greenland. Yeah, Denmark, in their intel paper of 2025, Denmark said that Greenland faces a Russia-China threat. They put it all in writing. It's all there in their 2025 intelligence report or intelligence documents. Denmark is facing a threat from Russia. Greenland is facing a threat from Russia and China. The Russophobia. The Russophobia and China hate. And now Trump is using it against Denmark. So the WEF is starting up today. And it's going to be wild. The WEF. Everyone was thinking that, including myself, that the WEF was going to be crazy because you're going to have the Green Goblin there, and all the Europeans are going to be there, and Donald J. Trump, of course, is going to be the main speaker at the event, and they're all going to be chasing Trump in Davos, trying to get him to send more money and weapons to Ukraine. And according to the Financial Times, Zelensky is going to press Trump for U.S. security guarantees. Probably not the best time, Zelensky, to pester Trump, to bother Trump about security guarantees for Ukraine. You've been beaten out by Greenland. I would say you have Greenland, you have Iran, you have Venezuela, and Ukraine is now probably 4th, maybe even 5th or 6th on the list, way towards the bottom of the list. But Dmitriev is going to, according to Axios, is going to be in Davos, and he is going to meet with Kushner and Witkoff. So we did get that news. But anyway, everyone was thinking this was going to be the Davos of Trump, Zelensky, the Europeans, and Project Ukraine, and now it is going to be, without a doubt, the WEF of Trump and Greenland and the Europeans. And the Europeans are going to be trying to convince Trump to back off of Greenland. Their argument is that if this is a Russia-China thing, then this should be solved within NATO. Let's talk about it as NATO, as a NATO family. Let's sit down and figure this out. But Trump is telling the Europeans, I am NATO. The United States is NATO. I don't need to consult with you guys when I'm NATO. So the Europeans' approach is to try and have this discussed within NATO and not out in the open, not out in public. And NATO can work together to handle Russia and China in Greenland. But we know this is not about Russia and China in Greenland. We know that, and I think everyone knows that. It's about Trump expanding the United States. It's about minerals. It's about AI, rare earths, the Arctic. National security, sure. It's about all those things, but more than anything, it's about Trump expanding the United States. Being the president that managed to incorporate Greenland into the United States of America. That's a lot of land. It's a lot of land that could become part of the United States of America. Even the Kremlin came out with a statement and said it's hard to disagree with experts who say that if Trump resolves Greenland's accession, he will go down in history. That is from the Kremlin. Notice how there are no European officials or NATO officials saying that this could be about U.S. expansion, that this could be about minerals or rare earths or artificial intelligence. None of them are saying that. All of the European officials are playing along with Trump's Russia-China threat. They're playing along with it. Mark Rutte, he has broken his silence. The NATO CEO has finally decided to say something with regards to Greenland and to Daddy. He posted on X, spoke with POTUS regarding the security situation in Greenland and the Arctic. We will continue working on this, and I look forward to seeing him in Davos later this week. They play along with the whole Russia-China security thing. No one in Europe wants to say what this really is about. So Trump is stringing them along with this whole security thing. And the Europeans, they're going right along with it, which is bad news if you're Denmark. Really bad news if you're Denmark. To me, it signals that the Europeans, they may say they have Denmark's back, but no, they don't. No, they don't. So what is the European Union saying about retaliating against Trump if he does go after Greenland, and about the tariffs? The tariffs really angered the Europeans. 10% tariffs beginning on February the 1st. And if Greenland is not in Trump's hands by June, then those tariffs go up to 25%. And so the Europeans, they are threatening retaliation. We will retaliate. And the Europeans are going to start with canceling the trade deal that Trump and Ursula agreed on in Scotland. The worst trade deal in all of history that Ursula signed up to. The absolute worst trade deal in all of time. That is the trade deal in Scotland, where Ursula pledged that she would, as the European Union, she would get the EU to invest $700 billion in the United States, and the European Union would purchase 600 billion in U.S. energy. I think I have those numbers correct. And it's important, 600 billion in U.S. energy. 2-3 weeks ago, this is how crazy the situation is. This is how terrible the situation is for Europe. 2-3 weeks ago, Ursula also said that by 2027, Europe is going to be completely cut off from Russian energy, from Russian LNG and oil. By 2027, she was proud. She was proud. She was taking a victory lap because she has managed to get Europe off of Russian oil and LNG by early 2027, by the beginning of 2027. That was 2-3 weeks ago, and she pledged 600 billion in purchases of U.S. energy and LNG, and now it looks like she's going to be in a trade war with the United States unless they hand over Greenland to Trump. Yeah, so that was the deal in Scotland, 600 billion in energy purchases. And Ursula gave it all away in Scotland. And now the EU is saying, well, that trade deal, we're gonna pull back on that trade deal if you go forward with taking Greenland. The other thing that the EU is threatening is $93 billion dollars or euros in retaliatory tariffs. So they're threatening that as well. And then they have what's called the trade bazooka is what they call it, which is what Macron is threatening, and it looks like this is the big one. The trade bazooka is what it's known as in the halls in Brussels. And this is the ACI, the anti-coercion instrument, and the EU is threatening to activate the ACI. And basically the ACI is blocking a country from entering the European market. That's basically what it is. So in this case, it would be blocking U.S. goods and services and intellectual property and tech. Everything is kind of blocked from entering the European Union. This is called the trade bazooka. Following an emergency meeting of ambassadors on Sunday, EU member states signaled strong unity with Denmark and Greenland, but chose not to immediately trigger the bloc's anti-coercion instrument, the ACI, dubbed the trade bazooka. However, the bloc is ready to revive a suspended 93 billion euro package of retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods if Trump imposes new duties, a person familiar with the talks told Euronews. More significantly, leaders are actively discussing the unprecedented use of the ACI adopted in 2023. The instrument allows the bloc to punish economic coercion with measures like restricting market access, investment, and intellectual property rights. It was designed with adversarial economic powers in mind. None of this is going to impress Trump, to scare Trump. Trump will remain unimpressed, unfazed by these threats from Europe because he's got the ultimate Trump card. He's got the ultimate freaking card to play when it comes to Europe. They can get into their trade wars on all kinds of services and goods back and forth. But Trump can simply say no LNG for you. No LNG, Europe. And sure, some American companies, they'll be hurting from this. But the U.S. government can figure it out with those companies. They can subsidize or keep those companies going in the short term, no problem. But Europe being cut off from U.S. energy in the cold winter with no other options. That's existential. That's crushing. That's Trump's ultimate card that he can play. Energy and resources. That's what matters. And in this instance, the United States has a monopoly over Europe because Ursula decided to cut off Russia, completely cut off Russia. She was taking a victory lap. Just 2-3 weeks ago, she was taking a freaking victory lap. Yay, we're 100% dependent on the United States now, yeah. And a little bit dependent on Qatar. But think about it, Qatar is a U.S. ally. So if the United States tells Qatar, yeah, we don't want your LNG going to Europe either, what do you think Qatar's going to do? Europe or the U.S.? Europe or the U.S.? Of course, the United States. Very, very bad situation for Europe. The German finance minister, Lars Klingbeil, said, "We are constantly experiencing new provocations by Trump. There is a limit, and that limit has now been reached." Yeah, you can't do much, Mr. Finance Minister of Germany. If I were you, I would figure out who blew up Nord Stream. That's what I would do if I were you. Who blew up Nord Stream and then get on a plane and figure things out with Russia. Can Nord Stream be turned back on, Mr. Putin? I do believe Nord Stream 1 is still operational. Can we turn that thing on again? So Keir Starmer has already folded. He's already folded to Trump's demands. Yep, I listened to his speech today. And yeah, Keir Starmer said we're united with our European friends and our partners. And Greenland is for Greenlanders to decide and for Denmark to decide and all of these things. He said all of the correct things that he needed to say that will make the Europeans happy. But he also pretty much signaled that the UK is not going to go against the United States. He also said that. He folded. You listen to his speech, he folded. He basically said, it's not worth losing the United States. Greenland is not worth losing. NATO, the United States, the transatlantic partnership, it's not worth it. That was basically Keir Starmer's message. He's tapping out. He's tapping out quick and early. That's Keir Starmer. So I'm sure everyone is curious, thinking, what does Medvedev say about all of this? Well, I will not disappoint you, my friends. I will read you what Medvedev posted on X. He said, "Make America great again, MAGA, equals make Denmark small again. MDSA equals make Europe poor again. MEPA. Has this idea finally sunk in, dimwits?" Question mark. That's a question mark. Has it sunk in? I think it's finally sinking in. I said this yesterday in my video update. I think finally, after the tariff post on X, I think it finally sunk in for the Europeans that Trump is serious about Greenland. Finally. He first mentioned Greenland, and thank you to everyone in the comments for finding it out. Trump first mentioned Greenland in 2019. So I believe Ursula was the commission, the EU commission chief in 2019. So the minute that Trump mentioned Greenland in 2019, Ursula, she should have been on it. Right then and there, she should have said, okay, Trump is on his way out, Biden's coming in, but still, doesn't matter. We need to deal with this Greenland thing. 2019. And then you had Project Ukraine, you had the special military operation, and the European Union did nothing but deal with Ukraine. They did nothing but deal with Ukraine. They didn't deal with a possible problem with Greenland. They didn't deal with inflation, with economic stuff, with with anything. Migration, anything. They didn't deal with anything. Everything became Project Ukraine. An event here, a convention there, 100 trips to Kiev, Zelensky visiting everyone in Europe, coalition of the willing, as long as it takes, G7 meetings, sanctions, 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 sanctions. It was all about Ukraine. And even when Trump entered office in January and he started talking about Greenland, Europe did nothing because they didn't think he was serious, and Denmark did nothing. And Alexander, in his video update yesterday, he made an excellent point when it comes to Denmark. He said that what Denmark should have done, what Frederiksen should have done, instead of being totally consumed with Ukraine, of which she was and she is, her husband, from what I understand, her husband is filming a documentary on Zelensky. That's how consumed they are with Project Ukraine. But the minute that Trump said something about Greenland, way back in January or February or whenever he said his Greenland thing, what Frederiksen should have done is that she should have called a referendum. That would have been the smart thing to do. Strategically smart. You call a referendum, you allow Greenland to decide. Do you want to be part of Denmark? Do you want to be your own country? What do you want? And when that referendum is done, it would be extremely difficult then for the United States to make a move on Greenland, because the people spoke. They took part in a referendum and they have decided. It would have been extremely difficult for the United States to do something with regards to Greenland after you go through a referendum, whatever the result would have been. Recognized by the international community, by the UN, whatever. But nope, Ukraine, Zelensky, Ukraine. Zelensky was in a F-16 in Denmark. Remember that? I think that was Denmark. He was with Frederiksen, and they're jumping inside of F-16s and they're taking photos. She's going to go down in history if this happens, and Trump takes Greenland. She's going to go down in history as the person that lost Greenland. Think about that. As will Ursula. So Babiš, the new prime minister of the Czech Republic, he gave an interview and he said, you know what? Orban was right. Orban was right. All of Europe was bashing Orban for wanting to speak to Russia, for having good relations with Trump in the United States. You guys are not bashing Orban now, are you? That was what Babiš said. He said that now you have European leaders even saying that it's time to talk to Putin. Europe has refused to talk to Putin. Now, after 4 years, more and more voices are saying that Europe should negotiate with him directly. Yeah, that's the only card that Europe has to play. And it's a long shot. I mean, it is a long, long shot. Is to send someone to Moscow. Orban, it has to be Orban. Send Orban to Moscow, agree to June 2024 terms at a minimum. Maybe Putin ups it. Maybe he asks for more, but agree to it. That would really shock everybody. And then Orban goes to Washington and he tries to work things out with Trump as well. I don't think Russia would go for it. I don't even know if Trump would go for it, but that's the only card that you really have left to play. And of course, Europe would never go for it either. Europe would never do it. But that would be what I would do. If I was running the EU, I would deputize Viktor Orban. I would say, you know what, Orban? Here you go. You're the man. You're the man. Go to Moscow. Let's wrap up Ukraine. Let's try to get back in good with Russia, and then they'll open up the doors to us with the multipolar world and China, and then go to Washington and speak with Trump as well. You know, Europe is never going to be a power, a great power, the EU. It's never going to be a great power. It's not going to be a great power. It's over. It's done. It's not going to happen. But they could try to rebalance things. 70% with the US, with the West, 30% with the East. So Trump, he invited Putin to become part of his board of peace. That's going to rattle the globalist elite. Yeah, he invited Putin to be part of his board of peace, which many people believe is his replacement for the UN. It's meant for Gaza, initially meant for Gaza, but it's broader than that. And this could be Trump's move to replace much of the United Nations. And Putin got an invite, and the Kremlin has confirmed as much. And Peskov said that they are studying the proposal. So let's do one more story. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we're all right. Let's do one more story, and then we can wrap up today's video. So there's an interesting post from 1 second, from Armchair Warlord, and it has to do with the casualties and the KIAs in the conflict in Ukraine. And I thought it was an interesting post. It's actually a report that came out that has not gotten much attention. And basically what the report talks about is amputees in the war. Give me 1 second. Let me open this up. So the report provides numbers of soldiers who have undergone procedures, amputations. And what Armchair Warlord does is that he correlates the number of amputations in the report for Russian soldiers and then for Ukrainian soldiers, and he correlates it to Vietnam and the ratio of amputees to KIAs in Vietnam. And he makes an assumption. He says, what if the ratios of what we saw in Vietnam, amputations to KIA, was the same for the conflict in Ukraine? Would that give us an indication of the KIAs for both sides? And so let me read you what Armchair Warlord posted on X. It's a bit long, but it's very interesting. From Armchair Warlord. A leak of patient data from the Russian military medical system back in mid-2024 seems to have flown under the radar of the commentariat for pretty simple reasons. Russians aren't going to comment on a leak, and the data is devastating for Ukraine. Of particular note is a data point that Russian forces, as of mid-June 2024, had suffered a mere 3,200 amputation wounds, including minor amputations of fingers and toes. There were some 5,283 major amputations, resulting in the loss of limbs suffered by U.S. forces in Vietnam, compared to 58,281 deaths, a ratio of 11-1. Assuming that Russian medical care in Ukraine is similar in nature to that U.S. forces were able to provide during the Vietnam War, a reasonable assumption, this would suggest Russian forces had suffered fewer than 40,000 personnel KIA by June 2024. At the time, the most conservative, generally accepted estimate of Russian losses in Ukraine, Media Zonas, was standing at almost 90,000 based on a database of social media postings of inherently dubious provenance. A release of similar medical data from the Ukrainian side several months later, in early 2025, stated that their own forces had suffered some 120,000 amputations during the war to that point. I will note that this astonishing ratio, 30 to 40 Ukrainians to a single Russian, is comparable to that between France and Germany in 1940, including the mass surrender of the French army. Also exactly tracks that of exchanged bodies for the last year and a half. Food for thought. It is just food for thought. I'm not saying this is exactly the casualty, the KIA numbers. It's just food for thought. I think it's an interesting data set that Armchair Warlord highlights in this post on X. But what I find to be the most interesting part is that if you go by these amputation ratios for Russia and Ukraine, the numbers track in line with the soldier exchanges, the killed soldier exchanges that we've seen over the year as well. The exchanges which have Ukraine handing over 30 Russian soldiers and Russia handing over 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Those numbers, which we've seen over the past year, very lopsided numbers. The numbers of the amputations to a KIA, if you go off of the Vietnam ratio, tracks pretty much in line with the KIA soldier exchanges. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting post on X. If this is indeed the case, then it would mean that yeah, Ukraine has passed the 1 million mark. That's what this would mean as well. Anyway, Clown World. Let's do a Clown World, and we can wrap up this video. And so we had the foreign minister of Denmark, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, say the idea that you can pick out certain countries and impose tariffs on them is not acceptable in the world we live in. Okay. Poor Europe. Poor Europe. How dare someone place tariffs on us? How dare someone do such a thing in today's world? What countries would do such a thing, would place sanctions and tariffs on other countries? Unheard of in today's world. That's coming from the foreign minister of Denmark. Where has he been over the past 4 years? Anyway, FIFA is starting to rethink their Peace Prize awarded to U.S. President Trump. Remember the FIFA Peace Prize? Peace Prize. Yeah, there are some FIFA staff and officials, not the very, very high up. The very, very high up in FIFA still support the Peace Prize, Gianni Infantino's Peace Prize to U.S. President Trump. But much of the staff is very uncomfortable with the Peace Prize being given to Trump. Growing sense of embarrassment at FIFA over Donald Trump Peace Prize. Mid-level and senior officials uncomfortable with the award. FIFA says it still strongly supports the Peace Prize. The Peace Prize from FIFA. It wasn't enough. It was not enough. That Peace Prize from FIFA. He wanted the Nobel. He wanted the Nobel Peace Prize. And that's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe. I think my channel on YouTube is stuck once again on subscriptions. It's been about a month or so since this channel has grown in subscriptions. Oh well. Anyway, like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. theduran.locals.com, the Duran on Substack. We are also on Telegram and X and Rumble. 26% off on the Duran shop on all merch. There is a link to that coupon in the description box down below. I will see everyone tomorrow. Take care.